Hello and welcome everyone to this next episode. We're going to be talking about boundaries and are they helping or hurting you to find love? You're going to find out this and a lot more, and so just stick around and you're going to love it. Hey, my name is Michelle Chung and I'm a live manifestation expert, which means I help women manifest their soulmate live in person, offline. And I help career-driven A-type alpha women find their man so they can have the amazing, committed and effortless relationship they deserve. So if you're worried your boundaries have been putting you into particular situations in relationships and dating, and some of these experiences are not ideal for you, you're going to want to check out this episode. So I'm going to talk about how also human design has helped me recognize my own boundaries, what works for me. And we're also going to talk about the top 10 ways to be your best self in a relationship. So you can also start practicing these while you're dating so that your partner will also know early on what to expect in a relationship with you, and that you can always, start to understand and even optimize your boundaries and what feels comfortable for you. And they could change while you're in dating and discovering yourself. So firstly, hello to everyone, 2024, it's a new year. It's January. I'm actually back home in Sydney, managed to get a flight out after Christmas and enjoying the summer here. So everything's, back to work and been looking forward to recording a new episode. And also just a quick note that we're out on all platforms now. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Google, and a few other of your favorite podcast platforms. So cool. So let's get talking about boundaries. So this is something that I've heard women talk about, not having firm boundaries, not understanding where they start and where he stops. And I think it's something that's quite common for women. I think we have an innate ability to look after people, to nurture, and it's very natural for us to want to, help other people. I think in a higher realm of consciousness, humans are designed to help other people, but I think women in particular, we naturally have the biology to look after others in terms of, having children, and it's become part of our natural instinct, right? So, and I'm not saying that all women feel this, but it tends to be kind of, I guess, what they say, a maternal instinct to look after other people. But, and in Chinese medicine, they, helping others and being there for others is an earth element. And when you have an imbalance, it could lead to organs in the earth zone, which are like your stomach, and it relates to the color yellow as well. So if you have this imbalance where you're constantly over helping others, you may have stomach related problems and things like that along the stomach meridian. So it's an interesting thing because I guess my mum has helped me with my boundaries, and as I've grown up, I've become quite firm with my boundaries, and I think that's always helped me in relationships. So it was always kind of, I guess, second nature to me. I've never been in a relationship where I felt I was on, that I was giving away my boundaries too much. And I guess it became like, thanks to mum, which I learned from her about creating firm boundaries and pushing back and saying no when I didn't want to do something. But I also think it's quite a ingrained part of me as I'm discovering with human design. Basically, I was checking out the Hay House mailing list, and they had this promotion for some really discounted books, and I was like, oh cool, I'd love to get a few more new books. And I got this book on human design. I think it's, let's see, who's it by? I think her name is Zoe. Zoe something. I'll put it in the show notes. But basically, understanding yourself, and this system that's based on amalgamation of chakra, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, and astrology, zodiacs. So it helps you discover who you are based on not just, your astrology sign, which tends to be, as we learned from Jeremy in the past previous episode, that it's not quite the full picture. So human design is something that you need to know your birth date and time, which I do not know my time of birth, unfortunately. So I've had to kind of guess, but reading this book has helped me there's some certain parts that really resonate, and it makes you kind of go, oh, that's why I do that. So I guess I've always had very high standards, and I guess that's, learnt my boundaries from my mum, as I said. So that's really helped me to always be very firm where I am in relationships. So what I was discovering, I guess my brother, we grew up in the same house. So it's interesting that we have different boundaries. And I guess he's also got quite a bit of an earth imbalance because he's always trying to help people sometimes overhelping. And I think overhelping is what I learned from Landmark education, is that you don't trust, or you don't feel like the other person has the capability to do it for themselves. So when you overhelp someone, it kind of like undermines their ability to help themselves. So helping people too much is kind of like a way of being that you undermine the other person. So I think when you have really firm boundaries, you know when to pull back, and you know when to say, hey, this person, if they want to grow and if they want to meet me at the table and meet me halfway, and that's up to them. And for me, that was something I've learned and has served me, because it helps me to decide and realize who's going to be in my life that is going to give me energy and help me, in the way that, to help me grow to my greatest potential, but not to overhelp and to undermine my natural gifts and my genius. And I would never want anyone to do that for me. It's like when, you're, watching a movie and then someone tells you the end. That's terrible, isn't it? So it's kind of like that when you're overhelping somebody. You kind of give people the punchline of the joke. So that I feel like is overhelping, and you want to stay back in your own boundaries to kind of go, yeah, watch it, experience it for yourself, and you'll have an amazing, experience when you get to the end, and you'll have your own conclusions, and you don't rob people of that experience of having their own conclusions, their own experience, their own thoughts and insights. So, so that was really interesting, because the conversation I had with my brother was kind of like, do you do things because you want to do things, or do you do things because you feel obliged to do things? And that's something I'll, talk about perhaps in a separate episode. But, what's the fine line between obligation and duty, and doing what you truly love to do? So that's probably going to talk about that in a different episode. But basically, do you do things in your relationships? Have you examined in your past relationships things that you might have done that you might have regretted later and went, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. I was giving too much away of myself. I feel really drained from doing that, or I feel really drained, or I start to regret, and you start to basically resent the other person. But basically you chose to do these activities and chose to overhelp and overgive, right? So I guess it's also, I checked my human design, and I thought that was really interesting that I want to help a lot of people, but sometimes I might end up resenting them because I've given too much of myself. And sometimes I can be introverted, although I do come across extroverted, and I don't want to spread myself too thin. So that's another thing. Do you allow yourself to be spread so thin that you don't give yourself any time or space? So I was speaking with my best friend, Katrina. If you're listening, I love you and appreciate your friendship all these years. We've been besties since we met when we were 14 years old. So in high school, it was really amazing friendship. Really appreciate you. But basically, we're talking about how can you welcome anything new into your life if you don't give yourself time and space. It's the same thing. We were chatting and I loved, what's that Japanese lady who does Marie Kondo. So another friend actually gave me her book, The Magic Art of Tidying. And I was like, I don't need to be tidy. I'm fairly tidy. But when I read that book, I was like, whoa, this is much more than a tidying book. It's quite a spiritual book. So that concept is basically the same concept as what I love referring to, the law of sacrifice, or the way that scientifically atoms cannot take up the same space. No two atoms can take up the same space, even though they're really, really tiny and they look like they can. It's not physically possible to occupy the same space. You have to move one aside or give one up in order to have something new and receive something new in your life. So basically, when your boundaries are too relaxed and you don't say no to enough things, you actually don't give yourself time and space to receive anything new into your life. And that's quite the feminine energy, raising your feminine vibration that I always talk about. So if you're not aware of your boundaries, you say yes to a lot of different things and you spread yourself so thin that you may end up resenting that other person. But when we take absolute responsibility for everything in our lives, this is a concept that a good friend, Charmaine, if you're listening to this, she completely agreed with, and she talked about it like, doesn't everyone know that? But I guess it's like a concept that you learn if you go to a therapist or you do counseling. It's quite a common concept, the idea of radical and absolute responsibility. So you need to take responsibility for all your actions and take responsibility for knowing your boundaries. So if you haven't done so already, it's never too late to get started and start taking responsibility for your boundaries. So I collected a few ways, 10 ways to be your best self in your relationship. So you can definitely, start practicing these now so that in your next relationship, you know where you can stand and move away from those dependent relationships. Like I've spoken before in my webinars, if you've attended my webinars, Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about different types of people and relationships being dependent, independent, and interdependent. And if you're in a dependent relationship, it means you don't really have firm boundaries. You might be, a little bit over your boundaries, where you're over helping and you're saving and rescuing other people, or when your boundaries, you allow him to come into your boundaries, which might be a narcissistic relationship. You allow him to have too much control over you. And that could also, both sides also relate to lack of self-worth and self-love and self-esteem. So knowing your boundaries early on is super important, and it's going to help you in your next relationship to have that interdependent relationship. So that interdependent relationship means that you both know your boundaries, you're both what I call magnetic, you've done your work on yourself, and you're balanced within. So you have your balanced boundaries, you understand masculine, feminine energies, and you can attract each other into a relationship where you want to be together, to co-create, to share experiences, and you're balanced. Wouldn't say equal, because I don't believe in feminism, but I do believe in feminine, whereas we have a balance in a relationship, and it's not like this, very military feminist kind of relationship where you have to have like equal parts of all. That's not what I'm saying. So top 10 ways. So firstly, clearly communicate boundaries. So this seems like a no-brainer, but you never notice like that, boundaries never communicated, because it's not the kind of conversations you come up with, like when you're dating someone new, right? But just to be upfront from your boundaries early on and communicating that, it's a key, and it also sets that tone for mutual respect. So how can you clearly communicate boundaries? Well, with a new partner, you could say something like, hey, I really respect punctuality. I really appreciate it when people are on time. And I feel really, disrespected or upset if you're very late and you don't text me. That's a way that you could communicate your boundaries on integrity of time, right? So having these conversations also leads and gives you a clue to the emotional maturity of the other person, this potential, soulmate that you're dating, right? So and if he's able to communicate his boundaries to you as well, wow, amazing, right? Recipe for an amazing relationship. Cool. So secondly, trusting your intuition. So I just love listening to intuition. I think as I grow older and wiser, hopefully, that I listen to my intuition more and more. And when you do, intuition gets stronger. It's like a muscle. It's like when you acknowledge that intuition, you're like, yeah, that was good. That was good intuition. Thanks for telling me that. I'm going to listen to you next time as well. So listen to that gut feeling. If something doesn't feel right, if something happens, an experience you have in a date or a relationship, and you just feel a bit like, rationally, logically, that seems okay, but it just doesn't feel right for me. So it probably isn't right for your boundaries. So trusting your instincts is really powerful for setting boundaries, right? So for example, it could be, again, that time thing. In Spain, it's quite common to be very late for things. And I've done, I filmed content where I said I knew a friend who had a date who turned up 90 minutes late with no message. And she was like, what the heck? This is considered normal in Spain, but it doesn't sit well with me. So this is something, firstly, you can communicate it. And if that doesn't work and this person keeps turning up late, then trust your intuition that maybe he's not the right guy for you. If these simple things cannot be respected and agreed upon, then, this is a clear sign. Think about it from a abundance mentality rather than a scarcity mentality. There are thousands of guys who will happily date you. It's not just like a slim pickings, there's no good guys left out there. That's all scarcity mentality. That's not the way you want to be, especially when it comes to manifesting and attracting your soulmate. This is not meant to be hard work. If something feels off and doesn't feel right, go with your gut, trust your intuition, communicate that. And if he doesn't shape up, be okay to let him go. Okay, so cool. Tip number 3, take your time. Don't rush into things. So when you take your time, it gives you access to assess a situation to make sure that, you and your partner, your date, are comfortable with the pace that things are going towards. So for example, especially on online dating apps, it's a very fast-paced way of dating. I've had women complain to me that, it triggered their lack of trust in men because they'd have these online dates, these online profiles that would send them very, intimate pictures of themselves or want to, request really intimate pictures of them. And this is also trusting your intuition and communicating your boundaries. Step 1 and 2, tip 1 and 2, that the right guy is not going to want to rush or push you into things. Like, actually, with the right guy, things are going to go very quickly because he is the right guy, and it's going to be very easy to say yes, right? So when things do feel uncomfortable and he's rushing you, he's pushing you to do things that seem a bit, too fast, it's totally okay. Set your boundaries and just say to him, I'm not comfortable with this and I find this disrespectful. Just be, I reckon, brutally honest. I don't think it's a bad thing to be honest. It actually gives you a lot of credibility and respect. And because people are so wanting to be liked, wanting to be, seen as desirable, actually not caring too much is such a powerful tool and gives you such a powerful position to be in, right? So definitely tip 3, take your time. Don't let someone push you into a pace that you're not comfortable with, that's too fast for you. And look, I get it. Old school dating, it's different. It was different back then, right? But new school dating doesn't have to be this fast supermarket online shopping culture where you get instant gratification. No, this is actually how guys get bored of you. So you never want to be the kind of woman who gives the guy too much too soon. Like, seriously, guys can be like children with candy, right? So you want to keep that attention, but you also want to build up his respect for you and his awe of you. You want him to put you on a pedestal, and to see you as this muse that, once he gets you, you're like this treasure that he's coveted, and now he's able to, cherish, right? Cool. So tip 4 is to establish personal space. So physical boundaries, they do matter. Let him know when you're comfortable with physical contact, and don't hesitate to enforce those limits. So basically, when I was dating, when I first arrived in Barcelona, and I met this really nice guy. He was late. He was 15 minutes late for our first date. Actually, I couldn't speak Spanish very well at that time, so we literally had the phone with the Google Translator on the dining table. He took me to a really nice restaurant. He was a chef, and we were communicating through Google. But yeah, so that was like, okay, that's, not that it was a first strike, but it was like, okay, this is interesting. Culturally, I was not, familiar yet with what Spanish men were like. But anyway, but more to the point 4, establishing personal space. He was quite touchy-feely, and I'm not really used to that. Being from an Asian culture, and also my Australian upbringing, I'm not used to a lot of like touching, and I don't mind a bit of touching to emphasize a point I'm making, to connect with somebody, but quite in a professional manner. And I'm not used to somebody like hugging me or like putting their arm all over me, especially when I don't know them. Inside a relationship, it's, I'm obviously quite different. There's a lot of trust and established rapport. But on first dates, or like even subsequent dates where we're not in a relationship, to me, I don't know. I feel like I feel like he's trying to own me, and being my, alpha woman kind of thing, my A-type in my masculine energy. I don't like feeling owned. I like to have my freedom, right? So make sure you don't hesitate to enforce your boundaries with physical touching. Some people love it. Some people love intimacy, PDA, public display of affection. I don't know if people still use that terminology or not, but everyone's different. So I think it's good to just notice and be aware, and it's totally okay if you're not comfortable with it. Okay, cool. Tip number 5. Be firm and assertive. It's so if someone crosses a boundary, just be firm in expressing that you're uncomfortable with it. And it's totally okay to be assertive about what you need and expect in a relationship. It's not being high maintenance. It's not being high strung or like, high standards or anything like that. It's just simply being very upfront about what you're, just asserting your boundaries, and that's totally okay. So for example, something like that could be, hey, you're late. I really would like you to text me if you're going to be late. It's really funny because when I was at Landmark Education, and I started with their training, and that was like, years and years ago, probably like 15 years ago. But integrity of time was such a huge thing. It's like a minute late is a minute late. And they would really enforce that boundary, saying, you'd have to have a process for making up to losing your integrity with time. And it's really funny also because different cultures have a very different way of, asserting those boundaries. Like, say, in Germany, being 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late is just not acceptable. You have to be on time. So it's really interesting, and I guess the Germans are very straightforward about asserting that boundary, and they're totally like, yeah, that's just what it is. That there's no emotion or victim making or like reason making or anything like that. You can be apologetic but not turn it into a huge drama. But there are definitely ways of getting around that lack of integrity issue. Just make sure you could provide a alternative, just like saying, hey, I'm really particular about time. I really would appreciate it if you sent me a text message that you're running late. If it can be a few minutes before we're actually meant to meet, and you are running late, then just let me know, and that's totally fine. However, if someone is really really not respecting your boundaries with time, such as they cancel on you at very close to your date. Like, I've had women tell me that they were supposed to go hiking, supposed to meet up with a date, and at the last moment the guy texts like a couple of hours before the whole day event and says, oh, I've got this other friend plan that came up. How does that make you feel? That is not cool. That is really not cool. It's like he's treating you like an activity rather than a relationship, right? So I talk about this in my new webinar, that you never want to be in that position where he treats you like you're just an activity to go to. No, you are not just an activity. You are a person. You have made plans, and this is like complete lack of respect and disrespecting your time boundary as well. So if someone does this consistently, and actually this woman who told me about this guy, and she did like him, but once he did that to her, she was like, no, he's dead to me. This is a boundary I firmly assert, and it's really important to me. So someone who cancels on me at the last moment, leaving me with no plans, or leaving me like, high and dry kind of thing. So that was a really great example of her asserting her boundary and being really firm with that. Cool. Tip number 6, set consequences. So establish consequences for those violations of your boundary. So this can range from a serious conversation about expectations, or if necessary, ending the relationship. And, it's totally fine. Like, the sooner you can end a non-performing relationship, a relationship that has no future, the more space and time you have for the right guy to come in. I think the mistake that a lot of women make is that scarcity mindset of like, I can't find another guy. I'm getting older, or like, I've got to go out dating again. So all these things kind of keep you in your comfort zone and keep you in this relationship way longer than you need to be, right? So I think what I've learned from entrepreneurialism is you need to be super adaptable, and you need to just fail really fast. So if you see these relationship kind of failing, just go with it, and just, failures are not a bad thing. They're just like experiences you chalk up and go, well, I just learned that, time boundaries are really important to me, and I want to make sure the next guy respects that. So just, like, let it go and move on quickly. And if he's the right guy, he'll come back to you. So never worry that you've cut someone off too quickly. As long as you have integrity in what you communicate, that your boundaries, and that you have an honest conversation about it, if there's potential for a future relationship, then you'll come together again. You'll be in each other's lives, because it's meant to be, right? Okay, so next tip, number 7, is to surround yourself with supportive people. So sharing your dating experiences with friends and loved ones that can provide, perspective, support, and helping you maintain your healthy boundaries. I'm not talking about the Sex and the City type thing where you hang out with lots of single girlfriends and just complain about men. No, I really do not agree with this or condone this. I think it is helpful to have women friends who have healthy boundaries that can share the boundaries with you, and you can pick and choose and go, oh, I really like that boundary that she's got. I really resonate with that. I'm going to start practicing and using that. So that's a great way to grow your set of boundaries and to understand what, works for you. So those supportive people, make sure that they're a mix of people and not just all single girlfriends who are in the same boat, because you're all single for a reason and you probably have similar boundaries. So look for supportive people who have a mix of experiences that you can learn from, and you can just hang out with and absorb their energy and their vibes as well. Cool. Tip number 8, educate yourself. Understand what healthy boundaries look like in a relationship. This knowledge equips you, and you can recognize when your boundaries might be at risk, or they're not taking you to the next level, so to speak. So what I do inside my program is that we talk about role models. So I find role models are a great way to learn from. Like when we lived in village communities way back centuries, thousands, millions of years ago, we would learn from each other, from the elders in our tribe, from the people in our village, right? So how do we do it these days? Do we go on the internet? Sure. You can always find something useful on there. Definitely do some research and take the things with you that you feel are going to really work with your life and with what you want to achieve in your relationships. Cool. Next one, tip number 9, is to prioritize self-care. This is a good one. So taking care of yourself is a boundary in itself. So make sure you have time for your own hobbies, your own friends, and have personal space to maintain that healthy balance. I don't know about you, but I guess when you're younger, in your 20s and your teenage years, you tend to lose yourself in relationships. I know that I probably did. When, it's your first loves and all you want to do is spend as much time with them as possible, and you get really absorbed into their life and hopefully they into your life. And, time disappears, right? So I guess when you're in your later years and, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, when you've had a lot of experiences in your life, you're able to recognize that, your health and your time on your own to recharge, or how important are friends. You don't want to just ditch them once you're in a relationship, do you? They're the ones who are there for you if that relationship does disappear, right? So you want to make sure that you set time for your new partner, but you also keep that time special for your friends and family, and those hobbies and things that make you feel good, make you feel alive, make you feel rejuvenated, because you're going to want to bring all this back into your relationship anyway. It's like a self-perpetuating cycle. You need your private time to rejuvenate, look after yourself in order to feed that new relationship. The new relationship feeds your life. It's a beautiful circle. So I think one of the dangers also is spending too much time with your partner in a relationship. I think you need to find that boundary, the time boundary again, where you get to protect who you are. You don't lose yourself in that new relationship, yet you can bring in this new partner into your lifestyle, into your friendship circle, and just have that balance. And that self-care is definitely, he's going to respect you so much more when you say no to him because you need to look after yourself. It also works in the opposite way when a lot of single women will take up too much time on self-care and doing their own activities, so much time so that there is no time for dating. There is no time for someone extra in your life. So it goes both ways. Make sure you look at how balanced your life is in terms of where you're saying yes to things and where you're saying no to things. Because where you say no to things are going to be the most powerful things because you give space to those things that you can say yes to. And okay, the last one, tip number 10, just be ready to walk away. It's the ultimate negotiation tool, isn't it? So if your boundaries are constantly disrespected, just be ready to walk away. You lose nothing. Your well-being is the first priority here. And if a relationship consistently violates your boundaries, it's definitely not a right fit. Okay, so stop trying to squish your feet into a shoe that doesn't fit. Okay, and that's also coming from scarcity mentality again, thinking there are no other shoes that are going to fit. Trust me, yes, there are thousands of the shoes that are going to fit Cinderella's feet, so to speak. So just like I said, just be ready to walk away. That's that practicing that non-attachment, that also practicing that mindset and that mentality that there are so many men waiting to meet you, an amazing person like you, that you holding on to what doesn't fit in your life is simply blocking the right man from appearing for you. So hopefully these tips have been useful to you. Hope you enjoyed them, and hope you've enjoyed listening to another podcast. Please make sure to like, follow, and share these podcasts with all your amazing other single women friends, and get them on board, get them listening, and hopefully it helps them as well. You can also check out my Instagram. It's at Michelle Chung Coach. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.